this guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
I want to say at the outset that I am a monarchist. I truly do appreciate the role that His Majesty's representative plays, not only here in our country, but abroad as well. But I do believe that the expenses incurred by the Governor General and her office must be transparent and able to withstand the scrutiny of parliamentarians as well as Canadians. And so I guess my questions are going to reflect that belief. And the first question I have is, what was the total number of days for this trip?
Mr. Chair, Stuart Wheeler speaking. I'd be happy to answer that for the honourable member. The trip took place from March 16th to March 23rd, 2022. So a total of eight days, inclusive. And the members will have noted that there were expenses incurred during an advance visit earlier in December of 2021.
Okay, and thank you very much. What was the total cost for these 8 days?
I think in the production papers that we have supplied to the committee, there are amounts for each ministry. The total cost of the trip is in fact $1.147 million, and for my part at the in global affairs, the total that was charged against the budgets allocated to the Office of Protocol was $518,741.24.
Ms. McIntyre, quickly, when you came on November 22nd, you said that you had eaten something ordinary, and I emphasized earlier that this beef Wellington is far from an ordinary dish. I don't know about yourselves. As I said, for myself, it's far from an ordinary dish. I could see the ices. I saw $565 for a few pounds of ice cubes. And you said that the lemons and limes, either you wouldn't have any more or you'd bring them directly from Canada. I could also see portable freezers that cost some $3,000. I don't know if that's dollars or the currency of Kuwait, or the 0.37 per dollar, and the other is different. But I saw 113,000 units of their currency that cost 444 Canadian dollars. So none of this is an ordinary average. So how will you ensure that in future it truly will be ethically responsible? Because here we have the impression that in the end, this whole process of accountability only happened is because you got caught red-handed.
I filed an order paper question, and that inquiry of ministry triggered the response to that triggered all of this, and so if that wasn't in your briefing notes, you're welcome. But it is great to have the opportunity to have you all at committee today. That OPQ response that was submitted in April and brought this matter to light has caused us to examine this particular trip. And I appreciate that there are some changes that are being proposed and some that have been implemented. My question is about proactive transparency. So I appreciate that there's going to be mechanisms put in place to limit expenses. And I have heard in testimony today, or we have heard, that the Office of the Governor General is not in any way involved in the catering, but on the invoices, it says that there are special requests for a sandwich for $53. And I would say that that's an impressive sandwich. It says singular. And there's a special request for salad for $271 Canadian. choosing to, having to eat a salad is one thing. Paying $271 for that punishment is something else. These must be quite remarkable dishes. But the order paper question and the access to information request that the Canadian Taxpayers Federation discussed and released are, it's important that we were able to get information through those means. What is the Office of the Governor General prepared to do on a go-forward basis to proactively and transparently publish their expenses for trips like this? Of course, respecting security concerns and the individual privacy of the people involved. But, for example, members of the House of Commons, there are itemized disclosures of their expenses published quarterly. Would it not be easier to put in place a system where this is the practice for Rideau Hall than to have to examine invoices and publish those and translate those as they come up, and for all of you folks who do important work to then have to appear at committee to discuss it because that's not what was done?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. These visits, the costs of these visits are actually already released, as Mr. Wheeler has described, through public accounts through the Office of Protocol, who is responsible for the procurement, the accountability, the contracts. And in terms of, and that includes travel, that includes many of the elements that you've talked about today, sir.
With respect, ma'am, the detail is lacking. Otherwise, we wouldn't have submitted an order paper question, and we would not have seen the responses from the access to information requests as revealed by the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. The level of detail is lacking, and that's where we found the unacceptable costs.
Sir, I would refer to my colleagues from Global Affairs and from the Royal Canadian Air Force, who are the ones who are the contracting authorities and responsible for these costs. So I will share the floor with my colleagues, sir.
So the question is about transparency.
Absolutely.
So the expenses are incurred for the Governor General to execute on her responsibilities, and her responsibilities are important. The detail that is lacking in the information that's available through public accounts is, as we've seen, not acceptable to the public. What steps are you collectively prepared to take so that on an ongoing basis, these improved measures that you're taking to reduce costs are reflected in a publicly available, proactively disclosed document?
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the honourable member. As Ms. McIntyre has indicated, our standard practice is currently to proactively release all of the spending per visit for every visit undertaken abroad by and paid for by the Office of Protocol. It does have a breakdown, so you can see the amount spent for accommodation, for transportation, et cetera, and we will, of course, continue to do that. We, as we've mentioned, the General and I have a committee that's been set up to look at the specific questions that were raised and for which we were able to see that the system in place wasn't sufficient for the oversight of some of those exorbitant costs related to catering, and we have addressed those and will address them going forward, and we'll continue to make those savings on behalf of Canadian taxpayers.